Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining this stream news summary from Moscow program. Today is 4th of December. It's 12 p.m. Moscow time, and as always, I have prepared quite a number of news that Russian media is paying attention to, and hopefully you will find news segment informative and useful. And if so, please like the video. Click that like button and share video with your friends. Leave some commentary. That will be very helpful. Unfortunately, under the short clips that I make from live streams, there is much more comments usually than under the live stream itself. Although chat is quite active, and that makes me happy, of course. Thank you all for your activity, dear friends. And before I start, let me also thank Patrick, member of our community. Yesterday, right at the time when I end the stream, Anna, my wife, sent me a screenshot of donation on PayPal. It's her account that I use, her PayPal account, and Patrick donated yesterday $25. That was and that Patrick made my day because that was the only donation that this project received yesterday through PayPal, Boosty, or Super Chat on Rumble. So thank you very much, Patrick, for your support. And he also commented that things are going crazy in the US, and it seems like whole world is going crazy step by step as days goes by, isn't it? It is definitely, many of us probably have a feeling that the world is descending to some madness, which is quite scary if you think about it, isn't it? When you cannot predict, or almost when it is almost impossible to predict what the hell is going to happen tomorrow or day after. But yes, that's the times that we are living in, and I guess it is time to launch stream now, dear friends. If I may, I will drop now a link to my Rumble channel. I will drop it in YouTube chat, and if it's convenient for you, if you can, please switch the platforms for duration of this live stream, because as you know, my channel is not monetized on YouTube, and never gonna be monetized, but it is monetized on Rumble, and maybe with more views, algorithm on Rumble will show my video to a wider Rumble community, and maybe maybe new members will join. That will be very helpful. So I'm dropping a link to my Rumble. It should be visible now, and so yes. Let's go through some news now. In case you want to support my work, dear friends, or if in case you want to donate, you can use PayPal for that. The link is on this video in description box. Also, you can use a Boosty platform for donation. And during the live stream itself on Rumble, there is a round feature, or super chat, as many of us call it, and you can use that for highlight any commenter if you want to, or just to support. And OTOM1 KBOE or Y is commenting right now on Rumble. I can see that switched. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It is support, by the way, for this project, for sure. And dear friends, let's go through some news now without any further delay. And the first reporter is from TASS News agency that I want to share with you about further progress of the Russian armed forces on a battlefield. Yesterday, Defense Ministry confirmed the information that Chirona settlement was liberated in Zaporozhye region. This settlement, as many others, have two names: one that was given by Ukrainian side, one that is given by Russian side. I believe Chirona also has a Vyshola name. Let me show you on the map, dear friends, this area. So it's Zaporozhye region, Gulyai-Polye direction, dear friends. And I was reporting earlier about progress of the Russian armed forces on the eastern flank of Gulyai-Polye. And yesterday I reported about Zelyony Gai being under full Russian control. Clearing operation was finalized there. And today we have reports about Chirone or Vysoke, sorry, not Visole, but Vysoke settlement, a relatively small village on the outskirts of Gulyai-Polye, but due to its close proximity from the Gulyai-Polye main stronghold of the Kiev regime on the Zaporozhye direction. Of course, these developments has a key importance right now, and also we are receiving reports that Russian armed forces are closing into Gulyai-Polye from northern side. Also, according to some reports, Kiev regime is deploying additional formations in Gulyai-Polye direction. They are trying to strengthen their defense lines in this area after collapse, basically, that happened around Gulyai-Polye. I don't think this will help Kiev regime much, but we will see. We will see. When it comes to overall situation on the battlefield, dear friends, Russian troops in Zaporozhye sector, for example, finalizing, according to some reports, clearing operation, encirclement and the clearing operation in Stepnogorsk area. This is most western flank of Zaporozhye sector. Russian troops are also further advancing in Novodanilovka settlement on the southern side of Orekhov city, main stronghold of the Kiev regime in Zaporozhye sector, in the middle of this direction. And as I already reported, Russian militaries have significant progress in Gulyai-Polye direction. Russian troops already are, according to many reports, inside the Gulyai-Polye, and there are certain districts already being controlled by Russian troops. When it comes to other sectors, in Pokrovsk-Mirnograd direction, there were no reports about some major developments. As you know, Pokrovsk is under full Russian control, and the Russian troops are basically finalizing at this point clearing operation in northern part of their city, main body of the city that you see right now on your screen. And yesterday, if you are subscribed to my Patreon and or Twitter X pages, probably you see yet another instance when Russian militaries deployed their air force, FAB 1500 strike, this in that particular case, on a point of concentration of Kiev regime's forces that most likely refused to surrender. And this is, dear friends, approximately the area where this strike took place, most northern part of Mirnograd. This particular building was struck and almost completely destroyed. You know, you have seen these explosions of FAB 1500 or FAB 3000. There is literally no chances to survive unscathed. If you are anywhere close to that explosion, sir, and my assumption is probably negotiations with that particular unit failed completely. Russian side tried to give them opportunity, not just try, but actually give them opportunity to lay down arms and surrender. They refused, and then Air Force was called in. Should be example for all the other units. Why they're gonna sacrifice themselves for Western geopolitical agenda or this corrupt criminal terrorist regime of Zelensky is beyond my understanding. They should save their own lives, right, and get back to their families after a special military operation ends, and therefore they should lay down arms and surrender. According to Kiev-controlled propaganda outlets, according to Western propaganda outlets, around 1,000 troops of Kiev regime might be still encircled in Mirnograd on this northern part of the city. According to some Russian sources, actual number of encircled troops of Kiev regime could be between 1,500 and 2,000. So quite significant number of Kiev regime's forces are encircled in this settlement. And yet again, if they will lay down arms and surrender, they will save the lives. Otherwise, There is almost no chances, by the way, almost no chances that any of them will manage to escape from their encirclement. Small units are trying every now and then, but I mean, how are you gonna escape when drones are watching everything, right, day and night, right? Some might be very lucky and actually escape, but for majority, this is not an option. For majority, only option is to either die for Western geopolitical agenda and this terrorist corrupter criminal regime of Zelensky, or to save their lives. That's how it is. And hopefully majority or vast majority even will make right decision and surrender. That makes all the sense, by the way. They don't have to die for the West, right? When it comes to other sectors, dear friends, Russian troops are further intensifying offensive operation in the Konstantinovka direction. And well, situation is becoming more and more difficult for the regime in this area, especially after Russian troops managed to achieve a tremendous breakthrough on the northern side of Konstantinovka and establish control over the Klinovo settlement. Now reports are coming in about further progress of the Russian armed forces in direction of Bizimyana, Popasna, and the Izhevka settlements. Russian Air Force artillery is working quite actively in these areas, and soon I think Russian troops will reach main supply and support line that connects Konstantinovka with Druzhkovka, another major logistical hub, I will say, for the Kyiv regime right now in DPR, Druzhkovka settlement. Initiative obviously is in Russian hands. When it comes to northern part of DPR, Seversk Liman directions, well, Russian troops are improving their positions further, both in Seversk and Liman areas. Reports are that Russian troops are now entering Seversk from northern western side. Also, earlier there was reports about Russian troops entering the Seversk from southern, eastern sites, and now we have reports about Russian troop presence in the northern and northern western side of Seversk. City is basically under operational encirclement. It is practically impossible now to get in or out of Seversk on vehicles. Maybe on foot, possibly, but not on vehicles. And the drones are becoming main source of supply of Kyiv regime's forces in Seversk. And this tactic did not help Kyiv regime's forces in Pokrovsk, is not helping much in Mirnograd, and would not be much helpful for Seversk garrison of the Kyiv regime either. Yet again, best they can do at this point is to lay down arms and surrender. Russian troops finalizing clearing operation in Platonovka area, Russian troops advancing in Zakatna area. When it comes to Seversk, dear friends, there was reports on number of channels about progress of the Russian armed forces in Svyatopokrovsk direction, and according to some military experts, parts of this settlement is already under Russian control. Probably before end of this week, entire settlement on the southern-western side of Seversk will be fully liberated, and also Russian troops advancing towards Liman itself from eastern, northern, and northern-western side. Drobisheva settlement is becoming main point of clashes right now between two sides, and there are many military experts are reporting about significant progress of the Russian armed forces in Drobisheva area. Once Drobisheva is under full Russian control, well, Liman, at that point, probably we would not be mistaken if we would say that Liman is also in operational encirclement. It's very close right now already because, yet again, as it is case in Seversk, in Liman area also, enemy forces are practically unable to use any military equipment. Armored vehicles for supply and support. Not just because it's Rasputitsa, by the way. It's a muddy season, and that, of course, impacts their battlefield, but also because of their Russian drone operators are controlling all the supply and support lines. In Kupiansk direction, which is the Kharkov region, already, you know, dear friends, the regime stated that they conducted some counteroffensive operation towards Kupiansk, and they did manage to achieve some local scale success. This is all. I don't believe in none of it, by the way. I didn't see any reports about it on the Russian segment of internet. So therefore, probably Zelensky, while he was in Europe in past several days, just to have some talking points, Zelensky probably ordered their so-called media in Ukraine to come up with these nonsensical reports. They did. And then Zelensky began talking about how Kiev regime's forces are in control of Kupiansk, which is total nonsense. Obviously, Kupiansk is under full Russian control, and their clearing operation on the southeastern side of Kupiansk in this area that you see right now on your screen, dear friends, probably will be finalized in next week or two. There are different reports that suggest that there might be from 1,000 to 1,500 hostile forces trapped now in this area, which is a left bank of the Oskol River. And of course, on the northern side of Kharkov region, main hotspot is Volchansk area. City of Volchansk is under full Russian control. At this point, also number of military experts, their friends, are reporting that Russian troops practically finalized clearing operation in Liman settlement. This is village Liman, by the way, in the Kharkov region, in Volchansk area, not the city of Liman in the DPR. Many settlements have like similar names. Some settlements have like several names. That's what's happening, by the way. We all get used to this stuff, I guess, at this point. So it's not just Liman that is almost completely under Russian control, but according to some reports, Russian troops further intensify offensive in Vilcha area now, settlement that is located on the southern side of Volchansk city. And there are different reports, according to some, about 30%, maybe more, of Vilcha is already under Russian control, which is quite interesting because a few weeks ago, I was reporting that Kyiv regime was deploying whatever reserves they have left in this particular direction to somehow slow down Russian progress in Volchansk itself at the time, and also further south and southwest of the city. And as you can see, this deployment of reserves didn't really help Kyiv regime. Russian troops since then established full control over the Volchansk, finalized, and process of finalizing clearing operation is underway, and Russian troops moved further and almost established full control over the Liman, and they are about to establish full control over the Vilcha settlement, which is quite isolated, by the way, from other settlements around. So therefore, Kyiv regime's garrison in this settlement are going to have a hard time maintaining their defense lines, and this is it when it comes to short summary on the situation on the battlefield. Last night, Russian armed forces conducted a long-range precise strikes also on the military and logistical energy infrastructure of the Kyiv regime. And there are many videos now that are circulating on the internet about, for example, about strikes in Odessa region on some energy infrastructure, as a result of which a significant part of Odessa region is in a blackout. Yet again, this is just the videos. Let's see if Russian defense minister will confirm this information, what additional news we will have during the day about this last night strikes. That's been said. Let's go through some other news. And well, I mentioned in the beginning Russian progress in the Zaporozhye region. And well, yesterday, a number of channels on Telegram in Russian segment reported that on November 22nd, during the rotation in the area of Stepnogorsk in the Zaporozhye region, and I mentioned that Stepnogorsk is almost completely under Russian control. There are some presence of the Kyiv regime's troops there that are practically encircled now. And so in area of Stepnogorsk in the Zaporozhye region, which is most western flank of the sector, as a result of FPV drone strike, U.S. American mercenary, U.S. citizen Eric Martin Jigiman, former paratrooper of the 82nd Airborne Division of the U.S. Army, was neutralized. So yet another American citizen that lost her life in this proxy war against Russia. You might ask how many U.S. citizens have been killed since the beginning of the special military operation on the battlefield, and well, difficult to say. It's in hundreds, I believe. It is in hundreds. Most of them were designated as mercenaries from all sorts of private military companies. But I'm quite sure U.S. lost dozens of its officers on the battlefield, also as a result of Russian strikes. I remember at least several occasions when, for example, in Western Ukraine and some other areas, underground bunkers were targeted by Russian forces, and there were reports about a significant number of NATO officers that were neutralized in those bunkers, and most definitely there were among those NATO officers, there were U.S. high-ranking militaries too, potentially generals also. Anyways, let's continue with some other news. Although before I do it, let me once again drop, dear friends, a link to my Rumble channel in the chat on YouTube, so that members of our YouTube community will just have opportunity to don't look for links. You just click there, and you will continue watching this live stream on Rumble. And dear friends, there was a super chat. There was a super chat. And I will highlight this super chat, dear friends, after news segment. And now let's continue with some other news. And well, next is statements. Next, I want to share with you some statements that Mark Rutte made yesterday. At one instance, he was asked what NATO Plan B is in case US will withdraw its military assistance to further prolong this proxy war that NATO and the collective West is waging against Russia. And Rutte said that, well, there is no Plan B, basically. And he also expressed the opinion that US will not withdraw from this proxy war. This is my interpretation, but that's what basically he said. And I can give you some short video of his statement on this matter. So this is a video with...
The negotiations break down. Both sides continue fighting, and USA stops supplying weapons to Ukraine even for money. Do you have a plan B for this? Thank you.
Well, I do not. No, I don't think that plan B we have to think about. Because the US is very consistent in support for Ukraine, like all NATO allies are very consistent. Of course, what the US told us is we want to supply Ukraine with the necessary weapons, both lethal and non-lethal, but we expect Europeans and Canadians to step up when it comes to the paying for it, and that's this Pearl program, where the US is delivering the necessary weapons, including the air defense systems and the PAC-3 missiles for the Patriot systems, but also for the other air defense systems, and all the other stuff and all the military gear you need to stay as strong as possible in the fight, paid for by European and Canadian allies. That is the big program. It started in July, and at the moment already 4 billion, and I think by the end of the year 5 billion of that supply will have been delivered to Ukraine, critical material. But I have no reason to think that we have to prepare for those eventualities.
So, well, seems like Rutte is quite confident. Rutte is quite confident that US will not withdraw from this proxy war, and weapons flow and intelligence sharing from American side will continue. And I think he is on point there. I'm also skeptical that despite all their pretend on the part of White House that they are peaceful and they want de-escalation and so on, unfortunately, Unfortunately, I'm also quite skeptical that US will actually withdraw from this proxy war. And I really hope I'm wrong on that. Let's see if US administration will prove me wrong. Will be good news, obviously, if US will stop any participation in this proxy war. That will bring end of the hostilities to its end much faster, right? And also, Reuter went to say that for the next year, every single month, European NATO member states will have to allocate either $1 billion or more than $1 billion to assist Kiev regime to further prolong this proxy war. Basically, let me give you that video also. I don't know if European taxpayers gonna be happy about it, but I also don't think they're gonna be asked. I also don't think anyone gonna ask their opinion on the matter. But that's what Rutte said.
New pearl pledges by Norway, the Netherlands,
Yeah,
Germany.
so that's really great news. So a lot of pledges have come in, and I hope I can make a few announcements later today. Pledges made today. And when you look at the overall numbers, as I said yesterday, we are now at 4 billion. So that means we are really on track for the 1 billion a month, August, September, October, November. And I'm cautiously optimistic that we will reach the 5 billion for the full year. And then for next year, we need for the full year, again, a lot of money, at least 1 billion, maybe even a little bit more than 1 billion a month. It might be around 50, maybe a little bit more for the whole year. When it comes to this crucial US gear, so this is offensive and defensive, including interceptors for the air defense systems, crucial to keep Ukrainian civilians and civilian infrastructure safe. So it's really good that this flow is there, that Europeans are stepping up, and Canada, by the way, also doing a lot here. So really, really glad that this is working.
And dear friends, when I hear these kind of statements from not just Rutte, but from Western high-ranking representatives, what optimism I have to have, or I can have in regards to end of these hostilities, let's say in short time. They are clearly not intent to de-escalate anything, isn't it? Talk is cheap, as we all know. Talk is cheap, by the way. They are coming up with all sorts of deception operations in regards to this so-called peace settlement that they speculating on. But in reality, they are preparing. They are preparing, allocating more funds, allocating more weapons, and on daily basis giving us direct messages that war is not going to end. This proxy war is not ending anytime soon, and at least the European NATO member states are willing to go as long as they can, actually, right? Which is unfortunate, but that's yet again that's the reality that we are facing. To continue news segment, dear friends, I have also this interesting report that while NATO or Western elites are trying their best to prolong this proxy war as much as they can, allocating money, allocating weapons, intelligence, everything, seems like they are more often than not ignoring actual developments on the ground, actual state of their either Kiev regime itself or Kiev regime's forces that are on a breaking point, actually. And you can see this. You can just see this based on numerous reports about not just desertions from the Kiev regional forces, not just about due to unauthorized withdrawals of Kiev regime's forces from certain areas and complete collapse of entire directions, but also you can make such a conclusion based on reports from deep inside Kiev-controlled territory. For example, we have this report that Ukrainian soldiers engaged in a shootout near Kiev. And when this kind of stuff happens, by the way, this is clearly indicator that system is breaking down. When military formations are beginning to shoot each other out while competing for some commercial or whatever other interests, this is close to final stop in decline on the institution, right? Let me give you details on this particular shootout between Ukrainian militaries. So officers from the main intelligence directorate of Ukrainian Ministry of Defense and the Ukrainian Armed Forces soldiers exchanged fire last night over their sanatorium rest place, basically, near Kiev. The newspaper Ukrainska Pravda reported, and we have quotes here, clash involving weapons occurred between the representatives of the main intelligence directorate, terrorist organization, basically led by Kirill Budanov, designated as a terrorist and extremist in Russia. So there was clashes between representatives of main intelligence directorate and service members of military unit A4005 on the grounds of their Oktyabr sanatorium in the Koncha Zaspar district in southern Kiev. And this is, according to reports that I see, is like most expensive sort of prestigious district in Kiev suburbs, right? According to the newspaper's sources, GUR officers of main intelligence directorate of Kiev regime broke down the gates leading to their territory of their health resort occupied by the Ukrainian armed forces militants, and by shooting captured 10 soldiers, inflicting significant injuries on them, right? And this fight, by the way, then they release these hostages, basically, that they took. After this, intelligence agents barricaded themselves within their sanatorium grounds and refused to leave. Although they released their prisoners, they also refused to allow police or military personnel into the premises. This incident happened because these units were competing with each other on the topic of to whom this area is belonging to. Right, this is clearly criminal sort of row, right? This is criminals are fighting for territory, basically. That's what it is, right? But in this particular case, in case of Ukraine, these criminals are actually military units from so-called defense ministry, right? So that's what's happening. I mean, you tell me if this is not a clear indicator that Kiev regime is collapsing on institutional level, then I don't know what other interpretation you can give to this one, right? So they are nearing their end, by the way. They are clearly nearing their end, and on a daily basis we have more and more indicators of that, even if Western ruling class is not willing to acknowledge the objective reality on the ground. At one point they will have to, right? Meanwhile, Bloomberg reported that Italy sharply slowed down their NATO program for purchasing American weapons for Ukraine. The Italian government believes it is not advisable to provide Kiev with additional weapons during the peace negotiations on Ukraine. Italian foreign minister stated that it would be premature for the country to participate in the NATO program for purchasing American weapons for Ukraine at the current point. And this is quite interesting, isn't it? Italy's government, let's be real, with exception of some really, I mean, psychos that represent Italian leadership, generally speaking, Italian leadership was trying to kind of stay away as much as they possibly can from this confrontation. They could not stay completely away. They are not as bold as a Hungarian leadership is, for example. They are much more influenced by globalists and other forces. So therefore, unfortunately, Italy sent significant volume of weapons and also money to Kiev regime to prolong this proxy war against Russia. But there was always this understanding that they are basically forced to do it. They are not really in a hurry to end up in a war with Russia, unlike French leadership or German leadership or UK's leadership, right? And now seems like Italian prime minister and her cabinet seized the opportunity to at least slow down, right, demilitarization of Italy itself, while sending all these weapons to the regime. And That's what they are doing. Probably they are hoping that Trump's administration will help them, right, to defend, to stand the ground in face of globalist pressure. And maybe they will. Maybe they will. I don't know. But yet again, Italy is exception among this 40 plus hostile towards Russia countries, because majority is in stands in line. But majority is obeying orders from the globalists like there is no tomorrow, right? And one of those countries is Norway, that will allocate another 500 million to Ukraine under the Pearl program that Italy wants to stay away from. Norway will use as a mean to deliver more weapons to Kiev regime. So Norway will provide additional 500 million for the purchase of US weapons for Ukraine under the American Pearl program. This was stated by the foreign minister of the kingdom, Espen Barth Eide, during the meeting of foreign ministers of NATO countries in Brussels, in which, by the way, according to some, first time U.S. Head of U.S. State Department did not participate in person, right? Maybe that means something, maybe not. Maybe Trump wants to keep Rubio out of these international movements, especially ones that are connected with this proxy war that West is waging against Russia, or from the Middle East, maybe. And if so, by the way, who knows? Rubio's days as a head of State Department and national security advisor to Trump might be numbered. We will see. But nevertheless, as I said, man, Italy is trying to kind of distance itself from this proxy war, but others are not even trying. And Norway will allocate another 500 million. And when it comes to Norway, by the way, you know what globalist plan is, isn't it? In case they will need additional hundreds of billions of euros to finance this proxy war. One way they want to take this money, to accumulate this money, is to steal Russian frozen assets. And another is to force Norway's leadership to basically start spending on this proxy war money from sovereign fund of Norway, which is 1.8 trillion, by the way, biggest sovereign fund on war in the world right now. And Norway's leadership will do it. I'm quite sure about it. And Norway's leadership have no care about Norwegians, by the way. They are globalists. They are globalist puppets, and will do whatever they've been authorized or ordered by the globalists to do. Meanwhile, when it comes to this crisis, this proxy war that West is waging against Russia, reports are that today Witkoff and Kushner, special envoy of US President Steve Witkoff, and their son-in-law of US President Jared Kushner, will meet with Umerov, who represents Kiev regime right now, right? And let's see what meeting allegedly will take place in Miami. Associated Press reported about it earlier, and well, let's see what will come out from this meeting, if anything, really. Also, Trump was asked yesterday. He was informed by Witkoff and Kushner, of course, about their meeting with the Russian president day before yesterday that lasted for like 5 hours or something. And U.S. president was asked, Trump was asked if he was briefed and what is his take on all this situation. He said that, well, according to Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, talks in Moscow was informative and useful, right? And he also said that both Steve Witkoff and Kushner are believing that Russian president is genuine when he says that he wants this conflict to end. And I mean, I don't think you need to send some your representatives to talk to Putin to understand that yes, Russian president is genuine, that he wants to see end of this conflict, and everyone else, by the way, maybe with the exception of some few psychos, everyone else, vast majority of public here in Russia, by the way, are of course genuine when we say that we would love to see end of this proxy war that West is waging against Russia today, yesterday, right? We are genuine, by the way. We never wanted this war to happen, but it happened because it was provoked by the West, and they were preparing for this war for a long time. Western elites, right? So, question is not if if Moscow is open for a final resolution of this conflict. Question is if Western elites, first of all, globalists and their neocon allies are open to resolve this issue, really open. Not just some fake talks, fake negotiations, deception operations, but if they actually want to end their hostilities. If they want to, they can do it. Don't send money, don't send weapons, don't send intelligence, and Russian troops will finalize the situation in a couple of months' time. Literally, in a couple of months' time, this conflict will end, right? And this terrorist regime and all the terrorist groups there will be neutralized. So it's that simple, man. Nothing is simple, especially when it comes to military operations, obviously. But in terms of political steps, that's what they have to do. Just stay away. Withdraw from this proxy war. It's you that are waging this war, isn't it? Some people in the West, to nowadays, by the way, mainly because of their Western tremendous propaganda, still don't understand what is going on, and they think that many people think that, well, Russia is not winning because it's like 4 years now, and they still are fighting for DPR and Zaporozhye region, Kherson region. They are forgetting, intentionally or maybe unintentionally, that this conflict will end in 2022, in a year when it's begun. If NATO countries, if collective West countries did not pour in army of mercenaries, by the way, from all over the world, and hundreds of billions of dollars of weapons and money, cash itself, this conflict would end in 2022 if West did not prolong it to nowadays. And as I said many times before, Russia is defeating NATO. Russia is not defeating just a regime. Russia is defeating whole of collective West, which is bigger than NATO, right? Because yet again, they are fighting against Russia with the best military force they can come up with, which is a key regime's military force, which is much more capable, by the way, and they prove it already, much more capable than British militaries, French militaries, US militaries combined. Let's not argue on that. Can you imagine what would happen to British militaries if whole entire British army was put there on some of the directions, let's say in Pokrovsk-Milnograd area? Can you imagine what would happen to them? How long they would manage to stay there and fight? Like week, whole British army, by the way. I don't know how many are they, like 50,000, 60, 70,000. Same can be said about French militaries and American militaries, man. When they last time fought actual high-intensity conflict with a near peer? Since Vietnam, never. So NATO is using best military they can use against Russia. That is Ukraine's military. And they are using their own equipment, whatever they can send. And they already send their weapons for hundreds of billions of dollars. And they are bragging about it, right? They are openly bragging about this. So Russia is defeating on the battlefield, not just Kiev regime, but whole NATO. Because if UK now deploys all its army, if France deploys all its army, If all the other NATO countries, by the way, will start deploying their armies, you think that will really change much on a battlefield? No. No. They are absolutely unprepared. These NATO troops are absolutely unprepared for this type of warfare, by the way. And Russian troops will eliminate them 10 times faster than neutralization of Kiev regime's forces is taking. I mean, that's a real talk, man. That's the reality. If you believe in Hollywood and the propaganda, also the propaganda, how powerful and capable American troops are, and British troops and French troops, I mean, come on, man. Really? All of them being kicked out from Afghanistan just like recently, isn't it? By Taliban. By soldiers in sandals, by the way. By soldiers, fighters that only had AKs in their hands, and they still kick out NATO, right? Defeated and humiliated NATO. So what are we talking about? Although it is also important point to keep in mind that, as Russian leadership said on a number of occasions, if NATO will openly enter war against Russia, then in that case, of course, there will be a high probability that Russia would not deploy against the enemy only conventional warfare, tactics and strategy and their weapons, but also something else will be deployed too. Just 2 days ago, Russian president was very clear about this, while sending quite strong message to European leadership that seems to be very keen because they are out of touch with reality. It seems like French leadership, British leadership, German leadership, they are very keen to send their troops into this fight, right? They're not going to send their own kids, right, to fight. No, they're going to send kids of others to fight and die. But it seems like they want to do this because they are out of touch with reality. And that's why Russian president said, we don't want a war with nobody, including Europe. But if European leaders will start the war, open war against Russia, then that will end very rapidly. That war will end very quickly. And it might take very short time until there will be no one left in Europe from Western elites or European elites with whom Russia can negotiate. It is what it is. But yet again, these delusional elites in the West, by the way, delusional elites, they are pushing this false narrative on the public and on themselves too, because they are believing, after saying 1,000 times that Russia is bluffing, Putin is bluffing, we are most powerful, we can do anything, and they are weak. After saying this nonsense 1,000 times, they are actually starting to believe in this nonsense, right? And then they are forcing so-called media in the West that they control to also push this narrative on public. And pure example, for example, of that is an article in Telegraph that you see screenshot that you see right now on your screen. We have nothing to fear from Putin's nukes. I mean, what? What? Is anybody in Telegraph understands? I mean, has any understanding what nuclear weapon is? Is anybody in the Telegraph? And Telegraph is a big name, by the way, in British media, among British media outlets, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, dear friends from UK, but Telegraph is sort of a big name there. And they are saying to their readers that we have nothing to fear from Putin's nukes. Okay, by the way, it's not Putin's nukes. Let's start from there. It's Russia's nukes. And you know what? I don't know about British elites and media and population there, but I fear nukes, man. We fear nukes. And every rational human being fears nukes because we should. This is the most devastating weapon system ever created. that can obliterate their entire freaking city in a second. So we should have this fear. We should have this fear of potential nuclear warfare, because it will be end of humanity as we know it. And unfortunately, because seems like in the Western world, especially in Europe, this fear of the nukes is disappearing. Fear of the nuclear warfare is clearly disappearing. And look, the articles that they are coming up, and they are saying it openly. We have nothing to fear from the Putin's nukes. I mean, nukes, really? It's nothing, man. Let's go fight Russia. They're not going to use nukes, or even if they do, man, we just dodge them or something, right? It's insane, man. This is insanity, right? And because people like that, with this type of thinking, are in a position of elites in the West, including in Europe, unfortunately, there is quite a high risk that one day we might actually end up in a nuclear exchange. And it is terrifying, man. I may do not try to die. Maybe, I mean, I don't know, but maybe I'm not really afraid to die. I lived my life, right? And I will love to live. I will love to stay in this world as long as I can, so that I can be as useful to my family as I possibly can, and as useful to my society as I possibly can, obviously. But I may not necessarily fear of death, but I don't want to die in a freaking nuclear explosion, man, when you just would not even understand what the hell is happening. Do you? Really? No, none of us want this shit, man. So you tell me what the hell is wrong with these idiots there, man, either in the Telegraph or among European elites in general. Well, they need psychiatrists, man. They need psychiatrists. For sure. Because this is just not normal, man. This is not normal. This is not journalism. This is pure propaganda, obviously. And it's not good, man. It's not good. If they might actually, with this kind of attitude, they might actually go ahead with the next phase of escalation, and then they will find out. Why should they fear Russian weapons in general and Russian retaliation in general? Because they should. Everyone should, right? Anyways, that's with whom we are dealing, by the way. When I say Western elites are evil force, man, I actually mean this 410%. I mean, completely. They are evil force, man. Western elites, Western ruling class is an existential threat for humanity. It's just so obvious, by the way, that I don't know, man, how anyone cannot understand this, man. RT is also reporting that, in their attempt, and as I said, Western elites are not about de-escalating anything, by the way. They want to prolong this proxy war as much as they can, right? Especially in Europe, these elites are going completely nuts, right? And yesterday, head of European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, basically come up with a sort of an ultimatum to EU member states. EU members will pay hundreds of billions of euros so that we can prolong this proxy war against Russia, or we will force you to pay, right? So either you pay or you will pay anyways, right? And she's also speculating on the topic of frozen Russian assets. She is pushing now new narrative that there is some legislative opportunity to legally steal Russian assets, right? And they would not even need majority's agreement on that. They would not even need all member states to agree on that, to steal Russian assets. They will use simple majority if they will get that, right? But let me give you details of yet another crazy stuff that Europe is coming up. So the EU will press ahead with its plan to seize Russian immobilized central bank assets to arm Ukraine, brushing aside objections from the Belgium, which hosts most of their funds. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen issued their statement on Wednesday, outlining proposal to provide EU with 90 billion euro over the next 2 years. This is just for next 2 years, by the way. And more money will be needed. If you think this is all, no, man, this is not all. They want more money to be allocated for this proxy war. The Commission has put forward two financing options. One is EU-level borrowing, in which funds would be raised in capital markets backed by the bloc budget. This proposal requires anonymous everyone, all member states, to agree. Basically, the other is the long debated reparations loan, which would require financial institutions holding immobilized Russian cash balances to transfer those funds to a new loan instrument for Kiev. Under their mechanism, Ukraine would only be expected to repay the loan if and when Moscow pays reparations. This option only requires a qualified majority, making it more likely to pass, and the Belgian government is going crazy too now, right? Euroclear is based in Belgium, by the way, and Belgium is receiving tremendous volume of profits, by the way, thanks to Euroclear and thanks to all these financial institutions, basically, that are being used by investors worldwide. And Belgium is going crazy because Euroclear is going to be demolished, absolutely, once globalists will steal Russian assets. And Belgium itself going to end up in tremendous trouble, right? That they would not be able to deal with, right? And they are complaining, but seems like no one is listening. Seems like no one is listening. And I don't know if people of Belgium understood what the hell is going on, but if they do understand, I mean, it is time to launch massive protests, by the way, around headquarters of these EU institutions that are located in Brussels and elsewhere there, right? Because it's their interests. It's ordinary Belgian people that will pay back for potentially decades this money that they are about, or not they, but their leadership in EU level are about to steal. It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy, and they will bother. I said from the beginning, of course, they're going to steal these frozen Russian assets, and on top of that, they're going to force, if you think that will be enough, no, man, they're going to force EU member states to put some 0.25%, maybe even 1% of their budgets to be, or the GDP, by the way, not even budget, but GDP to be allocated for this proxy war. Talks about it already has started in EU, right? This moment, they're talking about like 0.25% of their GDPs to be allocated for the EU regime, but give it a time, and if this proxy war lasts for another 3-4 years, then well, they will actually raise this number to 1%. Nothing to be said about, as I already mentioned, Norwegian sovereign wealth fund that globalists want already make it clear that they want to use if it comes to it. So Norwegians should also think about this stuff, man. It's their safety cushion, isn't it? This sovereign wealth fund. And do they really want this fund to be misused like that for a proxy war that globalists are waging against a country that poses no threat for Norway? I don't know. And by the way, we have a response from Russian side on these developments that EU is about to officially steal Russian assets there, Russian immobilized assets. So amount of EU risk losing from amount of money has been announced that EU will lose or risk to lose in case of confiscation of Russian assets in the EU. So let me give you some details on that. EU countries could also lose nearly $200 billion from their confiscation of the Russian assets. RIA Novosti calculated based on data from national statistics agencies Currently, approximately $209 billion is frozen in the accounts of the Belgium Euroclear. If these funds are withdrawn to provide a reparations loan to Ukraine, the European Union, according to estimations for 2024, could lose at least $190 billion in direct investments in the Russian economy. So Moscow has tools how to respond, basically, how to compensate for these investments that Europe might, for these Russian investments that Europe might steal in its jurisdiction. The countries that will be hit the hardest are Cyprus, 100 billion, Germany, 20.1 billion, as well as the Netherlands, 16.1 billion, France, 15 billion, and Italy, 13 billion. And you might be surprised while hearing Cyprus. Well, Cyprus as offshore, by the way, was used by many companies from all over the world, right, to invest in Russia. Cyprus was used by plenty of Russian oligarchs themselves, right? They were opening some big companies in Cyprus, and through these companies, they were investing back into Russia. But Western companies were doing the same, right? Because they pay less taxes. That's the reason. They just pay less taxes in Cyprus. All the Russian taxing system is quite moderate, really. I mean, you don't really pay tremendous volume of taxes here in Russia, as you do, for example, in very same Norway that I mentioned a couple of times, right? Here in Russia, you probably pay like twice less, maybe even more than that, right? So yes, Russia can respond on this development, and probably will respond because, well, it's Russian assets, and whoever from Russian side will lose this asset, private investors or the central bank, they have to get their funds anyways, right? They have to be compensated. So best way to compensate them is to confiscate European frozen assets, European investments in Russia, right? And just give it to Russian investors. It makes sense. It makes sense, by the way. And meanwhile, if you think Europe is only focused on money and weapons, no, man. Europe is also focused on manpower issue, or let's say Western ruling class is also focused to resolve somehow a manpower issue that the regime is facing. And one of the ways how they dream about making life more difficult for Russia is to create additional war zones, right, against Russia, additional hotspots. And one of the main directions for Europe is, or for Western elites, let's say, is the Southern Caucasus. And by the way, there was numerous attempts to do regime change in Georgia in past years. And lately, unfortunately, globalists, and that is London, first of all, London did manage to practically destroy relationships between Azerbaijan and Russia on a political level. And I think globalists are considering both these republics to be used against Russia as a second front, Georgia and Azerbaijan. And if in Azerbaijan they have a strong grip and potentially they can provoke they can potentially force Baku to go ahead with some extreme provocations against Russia, maybe even on a level to trigger military hostilities. Hopefully this will not happen, but seems like Western grip on Azerbaijan, especially globalist control or British control over Azerbaijan, is tremendous. Not just direct control, but also through their proxy Turkey. In Georgia, situation is a little different, right? In Georgia, situation is a little different. They tried several times to overthrow current government, to orchestrate regime change. They failed. And these forces that Western elites were supporting, by the way, they were openly saying that they will happily open second front. If you think they were hiding anything, no, man, they were openly saying that, well, they will launch military hostilities against Russia straight away, right? And for now, hopefully, these Western assets that are operating in Georgia failed. But Georgian government is playing very, very risky game while not neutralizing these Western assets completely, because things might change. Things might change, and because Western elites see that through traditional regime change scheme, they didn't succeed. When they are using, let's say, any elections, local or federal, they use usually elections, right? Then they are declaring, or their assets are declaring, that elections were rigged. They wouldn't acknowledge it, and they began demonstrations, and then they are beginning to demolish their state institutions, right? And eventually overthrow government. There is certain steps that they are using. They failed in Georgia. They failed. They tried 3, 4 times, 5 times maybe, in past several years. They failed there every time. But because Western elites did see it, they might now use other ways to do regime change. And unfortunately, Western elites do have experience of other more radical Western elites have experience to orchestrate more radical ways of regime change through. When there is a demonstration or two, and then straight away, very rapidly, situation is escalating, while weapons being deployed, armed groups being deployed, and basically when civil war was provoked, right? Or when situation is on the brink of civil war. Usually it always ends with the civil war. That was in Ukraine, that was in Syria, right? And I'm mentioning Syria, by the way, for a reason, because Georgian government demands apologies now from EU for false allegations that chemical weapons were used against so-called peaceful demonstrators. And when you were last time hear government using chemical weapons against a peaceful opposition, you hear this in Syria, right? To nowadays, even though these reports were debunked by independent investigative journalists that Assad's regime used some chemical weapons, to nowadays, Western propaganda continues to push this narrative that Assad was using chemical weapons against people there. False, but they still use this narrative, right? And they start talking about Georgian government in the same manner. The Georgian government is using chemical weapons against peaceful demonstrators. And there was a report about it on BBC, by the way, and even on a political level in EU, talks are beginning. BBC is obviously British, right? UK is no longer in EU, but there was reports about this subject all over the Western so-called media. So it's a wave. It's clearly operation that is being launched against Georgia, right? So let me give you some details on that, and then I will share my take on what should we expect. Parliament Speaker in Georgia, Shalvo Papuashvili, announced that Georgia is demanding an apology from the European Union over reports of the use of chemical weapons at the protesters, as reported by Channel 1 Georgia. Brussels is involving in this. As is a representative of the European Commission, who is known for his particularly hostile rhetoric towards the Georgia and Georgian people. A few days have passed, and it has been confirmed that the claims about Kamit, chemical warfare agent from World War I, were a lie. I wonder if the European Commission spokesperson, their MEPs, Anita Hipper is a spokesperson for European Commission, their MEPs, members of European Parliament, and their hired NGOs who are strangling our country will apologize, he said. The Speaker of Georgian Parliament also called what is happening a hybrid war against Georgia, and it is true, man. It is a warfare against Georgia that Western elites are engaged in, and yet again, this time around, because Western elites failed at least like 4 or 5 times, I think, in past years, to overthrow government, and establish a regime which will launch then, which will provoke then war with Russia. This time around, they might actually go ahead with their straightaway military escalation. They might order their assets in Georgia to launch 1 or 2 protests, and then Western elites might start deploying straight away armed groups to basically attempt to remove government through coup d'etat, military coup d'etat, armed means, right? And that's why chemical weapons are used now in a conversation against Georgian government by the European elites. No one believes, obviously, that Georgian government used freaking chemical weapons. What? I mean, seriously? But that's what they do, man. They are preparing ground to gain public support for everything that they're gonna do. I mean, Western elites in regards to Georgia, as they did in regards to Syria, by the way. They use this topic of chemical weapons for what? To gain public support for everything they did to Syria, correct? To justify everything, all the hostilities. And they're gonna do, and they already are doing this against Georgia. And if Georgian governments understands this, and seems like based on statements of Papuashvili, parliament speaker, they do understand that this is a warfare, basically, hybrid warfare that Western elites are waging against Georgia, then they should take some concrete steps. They have to arrest all these Western assets, by the way. You cannot defeat Western elites in the game that they created. You just cannot defeat them in their own game when they are changing the rules anytime they want, in a way that is more convenient for them. So only way to actually neutralize threat for Georgia and Georgian people is to completely eliminate it, right? Which means mass arrests have to happen of these assets of the Western elites. And there are quite many of them, right? Because for decades, Western secret services, through different means, were infiltrating Georgian society, right? And they did manage to compromise and brainwash quite a number of individuals, right, that are used now as a tool against rest of the Georgian public, against the vast majority of the Georgian people and their interests. And all Western elites want is to basically sacrifice Georgia against Russia as a second front, and they might do the same with Azerbaijan, right? Because London already did manage to destroy relationships between Baku and Moscow, and they did it for a reason, correct? So Georgian government is playing with fire, man. If they understand what the hell is going on, they should take some concrete steps to secure the people of Georgia and country republic itself. They might have afraid that, well, Western elites in that case will cut off Georgia from the West. They will cut Georgia's access to Western finances and this and that. Okay, let them do this. You will save your people, man. Life is much more precious than free visa travel to Europe that Western Europeans might take from Georgia. Lives of the people are much precious than access to European banking system to get some credits for your businesses and stuff. Save the people, prioritize the people. And the world is big, man. The world is not circling around the collective West. The world is much bigger. Establish better relationships with the rest of the world, right? There is always alternatives, especially nowadays when multipolar world is not just a theoretical talk, but it's a reality. So yeah, I mean, some difficult times are waiting for Georgia, I'm afraid, and My hope is that Georgian government will take all the necessary steps to neutralize these threats that Western elites are creating. And I remind you, dear friends, sir, I did report it quite a few times before that on several occasions, high-ranking officials in Georgia stated that they have on tape when representatives of collective West were demanding from Georgian government to provoke military hostilities with Russia. And you know what they were saying to Georgian leadership? That you are several million. Russians not going to kill you all, right? Some will survive. So they were actually telling them that you have to sacrifice your people. They were openly saying this to Georgian government, that you have to sacrifice your people. And they were promising weapons and money and so on, right? And this is on tapes, by the way. I don't understand why Georgian government is not releasing these tapes. They should. Whole world have to see what kind of scum of humanity Western elites are, man. And they are scum of humanity. They are evil force that should be exterminated, period. Meanwhile, interesting reporter from Latin America, Brazilian warship allegedly is sailing east along Venezuela's northern coastline, just off the shore of Caracas and Caracas. Caracas is, of course, capital of Venezuela. Its radar systems are capable of detecting every U.S. military vessel in the region, quite advanced vessel of Brazilian Navy, I guess. But when I saw this report, dear friends, first what come to my mind is that maybe this vessel is deployed off coast of Venezuela to take on board Maduro and his family members and maybe some others from his inner circle. Is it a possibility that Maduro and his people gonna escape from Venezuela through this while on board of this Brazilian vessel? Because I don't think Brazil are gonna even try to act as a sort of deterrent for U.S. militaries in the region. So why Brasilia send its vessel off towards the Venezuela? Only logical explanation I have is to take a part in potential evacuation operation for Maduro and his family and his inner circle. Maybe I'm wrong, dear friends. I don't know. But recently there was quite a number of reports that a phone conversation has happened between Trump and Maduro, and Trump demanded Maduro to flee Venezuela. He gave him ultimatum of week. That week already expired on 28th of November. But maybe U.S. give Maduro another week or two, and if Maduro agreed on that, then maybe that's the way he will escape, and his inner circle on the board of Brazilian warship. Could be the case. I don't know, but I definitely don't believe in the possibility that Brazil sent this vessel to either deter U.S. Navy or U.S. militaries basically from attacking Venezuela, or to basically gather intelligence and then share this intelligence with Venezuela. I don't think Brazil will do this. So probably this vessel is on a sort of a humanitarian mission to evacuate leadership of Venezuela. Yet again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misreading the situation, right? But there was a report also that Trump had a conversation with Lula, Brazil's president, and maybe they discussed, most likely they discussed Venezuela also, and who knows, maybe this deployment of vessel is a result of this deployment of Brazilian warship off coast of Venezuela is a result of those talks between Trump and his Brazilian colleague. Could be the case. Nothing gonna surprise me, anyways, right? So we will see. Also, dear friends, of course, important news that I want to share with you that today Russian president is visiting India for 2 day official state visit. He will stay in India until tomorrow. And with Putin, by the way, there is a massive Russian delegation, ministers, business representatives, a lot of people, that are on important positions here in Russia are traveling to India. Expectations are that some very bigger, massive agreements, contracts are going to be signed between the two countries in different areas, of cooperation, including military field, right? Of course, energy sector will be discussed also, and the military side of things. And let's see, by the way, I'm a little bit optimistic. I'm not 100% sure, but a little bit optimistic that during this trip, Russia and India will sign a contract on deliveries of Russian Su-57 fighter jets to India. I don't know number, how many these planes India going to buy from Russia, but probably several dozen at least. And also, that contract will include a consequent transfer of technology to Indian side, and a combined production of the Su-57 fifth-gen Russian fighter jets in India. I think that's going to happen, by the way. Somewhat similar contract was in place in regards to Su-30s, and Su-30s now are main airframe of Indian Air Force, right? They have more Su-30s, I believe, than Russia. And Su-30 is a very capable plane, by the way. Everyone is impressed with Su-30. It's a great plane, right? Especially if you're doing constant updates and modernizations, right? So I expect significant contracts, including about Su-57s. And talks are, by the way, that maybe Russia will even agree to sell to India S-500 air defense system, and India will be first country in this world which will get its hands on S-500. Unique system, by the way, unique air defense system that is capable to intercept literally everything. Literally everything, by the way. Stealth, non-stealth, hypersonic, non-hypersonic, no matter altitude, by the way. S-500 can intercept satellites, so, I mean, it's a beast. If S-400 is like 10 times better than anything that Western countries can produce, right? And it is, by the way. S-400 is something that Western military-industrial complex will only be able to reach that level of technology, maybe in like 50 years or something, right? Maybe never. S-500 is something out of this world, man. It's something out of this world. And that's why I have some doubts. Will Russia actually transfer S-500s? Because other countries will definitely try to get their hands on some information about these systems, right? It's a bit risky stuff, really. But who knows? S-400s for sure. I'm quite sure Su-57s and S-400s will be part of a grandiose deal that's going to happen between the two countries today and tomorrow. Today is a working day. Tomorrow will be official day of official all these ceremonies and stuff. Although Russian president will have a conversation with their Indian colleague Modi on today and tomorrow, obviously. But official ceremony of receiving Russian leader will take place tomorrow on 5th of December. And Indian TV, by the way, Indian TV, India Today had an interview, quite extensive interview with the Russian president, about 1.5 hours, and numerous questions, numerous answers. Interesting interview, by the way, that's gonna make headlines worldwide for sure. And one of the questions was about G invitation, possible invitation of Russia back to G8. And you remember what was my reaction when I heard that in this Trump's so-called 28 or whatever point peace plan, there was also step to invite Russia back to G8. And I said straight away while commenting on the matter that, I mean, who gives a damn, man, about your G7 or G8, man? We don't need that, right? We just don't freaking need that. And the Russian president said the same. No, you're not interested. Western elites still cannot face the reality, man. They are struggling with the reality, and they're struggling to realize that they are not center of the universe. They are just not the center of the universe. We don't think about them day in, day out, man. We would prefer never to think about them, right? About Western elites. But they think they are, they are on top of the pyramid. They are main big bosses. Everything has to be done as they want, as they see fit, and so on. While life is teaching the lesson literally like every picking day, and at one point they will have no option but to face this reality, right? And so, yes, Russian president said, no, thanks, man. What G8? I mean, seriously? So Russian President Vladimir Putin stated that he does not want Russia to return to G8. No, Putin said in an interview with India Today, responding to a question on their matter. The head of the state noted that at one point it happened that he himself practically stopped going there into G8 summits when Russia was still in. I don't really understand why the countries that are part of G7, why they call themselves G7. What's so big about it? He added. And that's about it, man. What G7, man? I mean, who are they? Who are they, man? What they represent, really? Are there most advanced economies? Are there biggest economies in this world? Are there economies developing with the speed that are unseen in this world? Or, I mean, what is special about these G7 countries and their economies? It's supposed to be economical bloc, isn't it? Nothing, by the way. Main economy in G7 is US, right? Economy that is crashing, man. Economy that is experiencing some tremendous difficulties right now and gonna crash. Give it another 3, 5, 10 years, US economy gonna crash, by the way, big time. Once these bubbles start burst, I mean, US economy gonna experience something that they never did. Not even Great Depression will match what is going to happen to US economy. And that's the biggest economy in G7. Rest is, by the way, just nothing, literally. Nothing, man. Decline economies that not really that many people care about. So Putin is on point, man. What is special about this G7? Why we would want to be part of this declining economies, man? Russian economy is growing despite all this pressure and performing better in factual numbers, by the way, performing better than all these G7 countries or all these economies. So why we have to be among losers, man? What the hell? Do these leaders of the G7 understand that they, while talking about the subject of inviting Russia, basically world sees this as some bunch of losers inviting other countries that are succeeding much better to join their club of losers? What the hell, man? What is wrong with those people, man? G7, G8. Get lost, man. And that's about it. It is good. It is good that Russian president said the same stuff as I said when straight away when I see that report that, well, Russia might be invited to G8 again. Egypt, Russia cares, man. No, thanks. We don't want to be part of this losers club, man. We are fine here. Okay, this is it for now, dear friends. This is it, and now now, dear friends, let me highlight. Let me highlight super chat. Hopefully, you did like the new segment, dear friends. Hopefully, it was informative, entertaining, useful, interesting. And if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary. This might help. This might help to deal with the algorithm and potentially reach wider audience. And if you want to support, dear friends, if you want to support my work, this project of mine, under this video in description box and after live stream in the pinned comment, you can find all the links to PayPal, Boosty, Patreon. Please subscribe to my Patreon if you can, or page on Boosty and follow me there. So you will find all the links in the pinned comment and the description. And dear friends, now let me highlight. There was a super chat that was on Rumble during the stream. Let me just copy this. It takes a second. So 80 OM1 Atomic Boy. That's how I have to read it, man. I just now realize it's Atomic Boy. So thank you very much, Atomic Boy, for monthly, for becoming a month. I will highlight now. But Atomic Boy also become a monthly supporter on Rumble. So thank you very much, Atomic Boy, for becoming a monthly supporter. And also there was a super chat from Atomic Boy. Let me highlight this, dear friends. Сейчас, Anya, Capiro. Anna is telling me that it does not visible on a screen because I was copying. So this is the super chat. So Atomic Boy, thank you very much for becoming a monthly supporter on Rumble, and for your $10 donation through super chat or rant on Rumble. And comment from Atomic Boy is thanks, Levon, for your efforts. Thank you very much for your support and attention. And also, dear friends, let me once again highlight that yesterday, right when I finished the live stream, there was Anna sent me screenshot of a donation from Patrick, member of our community, on PayPal, and I was unable to highlight because live stream was already finished. So I will say again, thank you very much, Patrick, for your yesterday's donation. And comment from Patrick was, things are absolutely crazy here in the United States. And as I said in the beginning of this live stream, it does seems like whole world is descending into some chaos, which is quite scary and terrifying even, isn't it? Because we don't really need any instability in this world. There is enough chaos and negativity already, but unfortunately, our wishes not being taken in account by decision makers in this world. And also there was a donation right now, donation on PayPal from yes, I will read. I can see it. Chill. So Anna is nervous. Like there is a question. Read it. So I'm reading it right now. So there was a donation from Luke. Thank you very much, Luke. Luke, for $11 donation through PayPal. And there is a question from NSPK77. Do you have information about the presence of foreign troops, mercenaries, French, British in Odessa region, or is Russia still actively hunting them? That's the question from Luke, or question from NSPK77. And well, about mercenaries, last time I saw a report, and I did share on during my programs. It was reports about decision of a French government, French president, to create 2,000 strong expeditionary corps to deploy on a Kiev-controlled territory. And according to Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, forward units of this corps were already spotted in Poland, close to borders with Ukraine. Right? We know that France has its military presence in Romania also. Earlier, there was reports about Russian strikes in Odessa region, in Nikolaev, Odessa region, during the which usually it's foreign mercenaries that are mentioned, but we all understand that on the southern sectors, usually operations are led on the part of Kiev regime by British secret services, by British MI6 and special forces, right? And there was reports about French presence too. But right now, I mean, in last several days, I have not seen no reports about French or British troops being deployed in Odessa region. I'm not gonna lie. Probably British special forces are there. I'm quite sure about it, and British intelligence representatives, right? Probably French Foreign Legion formations also are there. Pro-Russian underground, there are quite often reports about Russian strikes on certain points of locations where French and British mercenaries, they being called mercenaries, were spotted, right? But I need to have concrete information, isn't it, to say with 100% that yes, there is a French and British special forces now, or whatever units here or there. I just don't have this kind of information. I have not seen it in Russian segment of internet in past several days. Last time I saw a report about strikes that potentially was on a foreign or on British or the French mercenaries was in a big strike had happened in Kharkov region, isn't it? When there were reports that potentially some 70, by the way, French militaries were killed. And that was quite some time ago. So, that's what is known for now. Most likely they are. Most likely French and British special forces are there, but and whenever Russia finds out their location, there are strikes, right? But to know any more than that, it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible because until they themselves will declare their presence openly, or until Russian side will release information about the presence of the French or British militaries or intelligence officers in certain areas, excuse me, you just cannot know for sure. But I think they are. There is a French military reserve and intelligence, and also British military and intelligence in many areas on Kiev-controlled territory, including Odessa region, and mostly in southern sectors, let's say this way. And dear friends, if I may, I will end if I may, dear friends, I will end this live stream on that. Maybe today I'll be able to make a walk and talk video somewhere in the central parts of Moscow for our Patreon and the Boosty communities. Maybe I will publish on YouTube and Rumble also some parts of it. And also, whenever I have idea, whenever I go out to make a video for Patreon and Boosty communities, I want to record like 1 or 2 short videos and publish as a shorts on YouTube. Let's see if I will manage to, do it regularly. Let's see. Anyways, dear friends, thank you very much for your attention and support. Once again, under this video in description box and a little later, also in the pinned comment, you will find links how you can support if you want to. And yes, please subscribe to my Patreon. By the way, two people left our Patreon community in past 2 days, which is unfortunate. But I'm thankful for them for being supportive. I understand that not everyone can support constantly. Some may support 1 month, some might support 5 months. It all depends. Many thanks to them for support, and hopefully, some of you, dear friends, 173 people are online right now on YouTube, and let me check Rumble. 31 people are on Rumble. So hopefully, at least two members of our communities from YouTube and Rumble will join Patreon. You can choose your level of monthly support there. And on my part, I will try to publish some extra content on regular basis as an additional thank to communities there for support. Okay, dear friends, this is it for now. Hopefully you did like the news segment. Have a wonderful day and see you soon. Bye.